Fenjen Stark emerged from the tree line carrying a handful of rabbits from their snare traps. Ser Jorah was kindling a small fire as the snow fell delicately on the edge of the haunted forest. Benjen sat with a grunt at the base of the fire, his black cloak contrasting against the white background. Ser Jorah wore skins of grey wolves and refused the colour black, as he had never officially taken the vows.
A good catch. I cannot seemingly complain about our monthly meal.
Fenjen sighed as Ser Jorah gently blew his smoky breath into the kindling. Monthly meals sound as if we were starving, but in our current state, that's all they required, Ser Jorah thought to himself. Their bodies were not dead, but neither were they fully alive. That was the best way to explain it to whomever they crossed, but that was a rare event indeed. Minutes later the fire roared and the rabbits were skinned and skewered. Ser Jorah unsheathed Longclaw and fined its edge with a spare whetstone.
Something I've always wanted to ask.
First Ranger Stark asked while nodding at the sword.
Nearly 2 decades we've ranged beyond the wall. I would have thought we were all out of questions.
Ser Jorah smiled to himself at the irony as the campfire popped and hissed from the wet wood.
You would have been correct, but it's quite personal.
Benjen claimed as Ser Jorah's whetstone then came to a halt.
Well, don't keep me in suspense. We only have a millennia before the walkers rise again.
Ser Jorah laughed with a half-smile.
My brother put a death sentence on your head for selling to slavers. I've often wondered, why not sell the sword? Surely selling a family sword is not more dishonorable than selling to slavers, and you'd keep your head.
Benjen laughed, as did Ser Jorah. It was nicely done, curious and logical. And a good question, Ser Jorah thought, as he admired the many folds of the ancient blade that he held in his hands. Longclaw, his father called it, though he had been the first to call it by that name.
It's a simple answer, really. The sword was not mine to sell, nor was it my father's.
Ser Jorah revealed, and Benjen sat up a little straighter, expecting a more detailed retort.
After my father's ascension to Lord Commander, this sword was presented to him by the Castle Black Meister, probably assuming the old Meister was not long for this world.
Ser Jorah dug deep into his memories. These were events he rarely ever dwelled upon.
Maester Aemon Targaryen.
Benjen clarified with full attention.
The very same. The sword arrived at Bear Island under heavy guard, with orders for the smith to change its crossguard, handle and pummel, with specific instructions for it to be brought back to my father at the wall when cold winds rose again. But I never got the chance. I went into exile and left the sword for my father to retrieve.
Ser Jorah finished with an undertone of bitterness.
I'm happy to say I can provide some clarification.
Benjen boasted, as the two men were deep inside their conversation. They had little thoughts for the rabbit still cooking over the open fire.
Maester Aemon was once offered the crown, and during the short period where he considered it, he was told of an ancient Targaryen prophecy that predicted the return of the Walkers. He refused the crown and headed out to serve on the front lines with a relative, Brynden Rivers, who eventually became the Lord Commander.
Benjen revealed, but Ser Jorah was failing to make the connection between the Targaryens and Longclaw.
Brynden Rivers wielded the famed Targaryen sword Dark Sister, and brought it to the wall with him. It was thought to be lost with him beyond the wall nearly a century ago.
Benjen admitted in astonishment, as Ser Jorah now admired his sword with a new set of eyes.
Why then? Why would Maester Aemon reveal all this to you?
Ser Jorah asked, still in a slight shock at what he held in his hands.
Because of Jon. Ned told me of who Jon was. We agreed I would take the Black to ensure Jon's secret could not be lost, and it kept the circle small.
Benjen paused just long enough to regain a cold, foggy breath.
Maester Aemon immediately knew what Jon was upon meeting him. He says it's the smell. A dragon can sense another dragon, claimed they smell of smoke and sulfur.
Benjen laughed at the thought of that cookie old Meister, a man he missed greatly, it seemed to Ser Jorah.
Maester Aemon felt as if he revealed a family secret that I would then as well. He needed the confirmation besides his nose before going to the old bear.
Benjen concluded as he flipped the skewered rabbits to cook their underside.
So Aemon would then tell my father, Gior. He had already retrieved the sword from Bear Island after my sentencing, and then presented it to Jon without telling him what it really was.
Ser Jorah revealed to a nodding Benjen.
Why tell him? A young man already had the weight on his shoulders of the Starks marching off to war. No need to burden him with saving the realm as well.
Benjen discerned as to these old man's intentions.
It's fitting. If a Targaryen is meant to unite the realm against the Walkers, who better than the Targaryen heir, riding a dragon and wielding Dark Sister?
Ser Jorah concluded as he sheathed Longclaw.
Jon may someday ask us why we didn't tell him what we knew earlier. Not to mention, it's likely the reason Lord Commander Mormont made him a steward. He had to keep the boisterous lad alive.
Benjen admitted honestly as Ser Jorah had a retort prepared.
I refused him returning the sword initially, knowing what my father had intended. If he offered it to Jon, there had to be something special about him. The second time he offered it to me, Blackfire was already resting on his hip. What is one Targaryen sword vice another, I figured.
Ser Jorah concluded as he stood and strapped the sword to his waist.
I often wondered why your cousin, little Lady Lyanna Mormont, never attempted to claim Longclaw from Jon, as it would have been rightfully hers as the head of House Mormont.
Benjen made the statement sound like more of a question, as Ser Jorah began to belly laugh before retorting.
Stubborn girl had no idea what the bloody hell Longclaw was. She had never seen it before. My father wasn't one to pray or act on prophecy, but he believed in the Targaryens, in Maester Aemon, and likely in Jon as well. Now I finally know why. It's the main reason I attached myself to Viserys, and later Daenerys. If I couldn't honor my father's wishes, perhaps I could honor and share in his superstitions.
Ser Jorah admitted in a somber tone. He had never had these active thoughts before, and he seemed to be working them out as he spoke them aloud. Benjen, likely sensing a slight emotional turn in Ser Jorah thinking about Daenerys and his father, he then attempted to interrupt his thoughts.
Ser Jorah Mormont of Bear Island, the wielder of the famed Dark Sister, protector of the Conqueror, slayer of Regent King Aemond, and wrath of Queen Visenya and Prince Daemon.
Benjen finished ceremoniously, as Ser Jorah enjoyed the slight mocking.
Bloody load of good it did me. Wielding it still got me killed by a damned White Walker anyway.
Ser Jorah laughed as he ripped the rabbit flesh from its carcass with his teeth. Ghost lifted his nose and chewed at the wind. The Southerners had made their arrival. Ghost had recognized the scent of Samwell Tarly, given their many years together at the Wall. Ghost stalked the caravan for many hours, restricting himself to the tree line. More than a few times, Ghost was discovered by a Tarly scout. A quick showing of teeth and slight growl was all that was needed to make the horseman reverse his course. Faint patches of snow were scattered across the gift, but offered no hindrance to the caravan marching up the King's Road to Castle Black. Foggy breath surrounded Ghost's face as Castle Black came into view. The wall stood tall amongst the thousands of watchmen now stationed at the Night's Watch center of power. Ghost broke into a sprint as the south gate portcullis was raised to admit the wolf. Little John Tarly was the first to pass under the portcullis. His galloping horse came to a trot, and then an eventual halt. It was obvious to Sir John that Little John was instructed not to dismount when making demands on behalf of his father. Sir John had assumed.
State your business, young man.
The Lord Commander stated directly to Little John. Sir John thought the need for formality was necessary despite the strong emotional distress responsible for their meeting in the first place.
My Lord Father, Samwell Tarly, demands passage and guides to serve beyond the wall, as well as the last known location of the Dragon Queen.
Little John demanded as his eyes shifted towards Ned Stark at the entrance of the stables. Young Eddard stood out to Little John, as he was the only man in the courtyard not draped in black. Sir Hunts, the commander of Castle Black, stepped in to respond to Little John's demands.
The Lord Commander of the Night's Watch has met you directly, boy. Return to your Lord Father immediately. Sir John will speak to him directly, and only him.
Sir Hunts demanded. Little John's face told all what they wanted to know. Little John was not naturally confrontational. Young Eddard testified as much, Sir John thought.
There's no need to respond, boy. Retreat from my courtyard in peace, and let the men discuss the terms of passage.
Sir Hunt demanded of the young Tarly. Little John's face broke. It was now obvious that Little John was sent with specific instructions. Guidance he seemed to be apprehensive of in the first place. One of John's head officers, his second in command, had made a demand of the young boy. John knew any contradiction of Sir Hunt's, although his subordinate would be viewed as weakness at best and dissension at worst. Little John turned his steed calmly, and without a word he trotted under the portcullis and through Castle Black's southern gate. Lord Eddard then approached his father.
Are their tactics as expected?
Young Eddard asked his father, looking to confirm his own assumptions.
Yes. Samwell wants passage, not a fight. At least not here. Nor would we give him one.
Sir John replied as the horsemen stirred at the head of the caravan. The Lord Commander saw Lord Samwell acquiesce to Sir Hunt's demands. Lord Tarly headed for the southern gate, his horse trotting to a halt, and he also refused to dismount. Likely assuming their conversation to be short, Sir John thought to himself. Lord Samwell looked just as John had remembered, still slightly plump, but he was still the proud father as Sir John assumed him to be. The horse stirred as Ghost then made his way into the courtyard.
I, Samwell Tarly, Lord Paramount of the Reach, and former brother of the Night's Watch, demand passage through the wall and the last known whereabouts of the Dragon Queen.
Sam finished as he saw Little John engaged in a disguised conversation with little Ned Stark.
15 years I've searched, Sam. To no avail. She cannot be found, unless she wants to be.
John replied directly to Sam, who refused to dismount his steed.
You are protecting her. As Lord Commander, you are forbidden from denying passage to a Lord of the Seven Kingdoms.
Lord Samwell spat with a vigor John had never seen from him. John's head bowed, breaking eye contact, for Sam knew the Watch's bylaws better than any man alive. John knew he had no right to deny his passage. Sir John then spoke softly, attempting to keep the conversation constructive.
I'm not protecting her, Sam. I'm trying to protect you and your men.
I am all the protection my men require.
Sam interrupted John with his hand twisting over the pummel of Heartsbane.
We do not require your blessing, nor your sympathy. We only demand your compliance, Lord Commander.
Samwell demanded, turning red in the face. He couldn't help but notice Sam's refusal to use John's name. Sir John slowly approached Sam, his voice barely above a whisper.
My lord, you know what awaits you. You've been out there. Southern nights won't last a fortnight. There is no grass for your horses to feed, no shelter for your men.
Sir John attempted to remind Sam of the harshness of that seemingly forgotten wilderness. John was close enough to see Sam's hands shaking as he held his reins.
Your delay in our forward progress may result in the Reach's congruent delay in your next grain shipment.
Samwell threatened, and John backed away, now knowing there was no reasoning with Sam.
Open the gate!
Sir John shouted to anyone who would listen. A figure came from John's peripheral, approaching Sam. Little John Tarly stood tall and stared his father in his eyes.
Father, this is a folly. Little Sam wasn't killed by a walker. Sir Jorah witnessed it. He testified as much.
Little John claimed as he handed a rolled parchment to his father. Sam read over the words of Sir Jorah, explaining what he saw beyond the wall. He lifted his head as he rolled up the letter and handed it back to his son.
Where is Sir Jorah?
Lord Samwell asked, with a calm returning to his voice.
He is ranging, my lord. He cannot proceed south of the wall without the Night Queen's permission.
Sir John replied with a small amount of hope in his voice.
These words are supposed to move me, to convince me of the Dragon Queen's good intentions. No, this is a folly. Mount up, boy. We're leaving.
Samwell demanded, with the red returning to his face.
I won't be going, father.
Little John replied respectfully to Sir John's relief.
If Mother was here, she'd tell you the same.
Little John claimed as he tied off his horse's reins. Sam's eyes shifted over to John, and there was venom in his eyes.
Lord Commander, please do your best to keep this Tarly alive. Given your record in the Reach, I'll assume that to be a challenge for you.
Samwell asked, and Jon now knew Sam wanted him to hurt, and he was succeeding.
Your son will be safe, you have my word.
Jon replied softly to Samwell's scoff.
Your word? You broke your oath? You abandoned the watch? More than once? Knelt to that frigid bitch of a queen, and still you protect her?
Sam spat with unmeasured loathing to Jon's dismay. Sir Jon refused to retort and kept his composure.
You should have been held responsible for your dragon's genocide at that village.
Samwell paused, clearly contemplating if he should continue.
Sam, please don't. I can explain.
Sir Jon pleaded with his brother.
It's ironic. Wherever death and destruction follow you, any indiscretion can just be explained away. Conduct yourself in an honorable fashion, Lord Commander, or else you disgrace your father.
Samwell was not holding back, and Jon's eyes felt watery.
Sam, you are my brother.
Jon cried, fearing Samwell's retort.
No, I was a lost puppy that you felt protective over, just so you could feel better about yourself.
Sam chided as he took in his surroundings. The tunnel's inner gates had to have been opened by now, Jon thought, as Sam took in a deep breath.
It was in this very courtyard, where I stood my ground against your nonsense. You then rode your horse through me on your way south.
Sam paused, but Jon knew he intended to continue, as his hands pulled his reins tight.
I remember, and I've apologized for that, Sam. You were right.
Sir Jon pleaded with his one-time brother.
And I am again,
replied Sam. Then he set his horse into a gallop through Jon as he was knocked to the ground. Numerous watchmen took initial steps to defend their Lord Commander as Jon held up his hand, a silent order to stand down. Jon reached his feet and adjusted his sword belt as he watched Samwell disappear into the tunnel. Little Jon and Ned met up with Sir Jon to check on him.
I'm fine.
He smiled falsely. Jon knew Eddard was aware that he was upset.
I'm glad you decided to stay.
The Lord Commander said to Little Jon Tarly.
It's a Tarly family tradition, sons who disappoint their fathers.
Little Jon laughed, which brought a crack of a smile to Sir Jon's face. They walked to the main hall. Sir Jon assumed Little Jon was hungry after their long march from Winterfell. Jon was happy to see Ned and Little Jon talking and laughing over tankards of ale. Sir Jon arrived with plates as Little Jon tore into blackened bacon and bread. Sir Jon kept quiet, trying to discourage the questions he knew would be coming.
Father, what happened in the Reach? Why hasn't Rhaegal been at your side ever since?
Young Eddard asked. Jon knew the day would come. A young son doesn't just lose a family pet such as the last dragon in the world without questions. Jon took a deep gulp from his tankard and thought carefully about his retort.
There was a grayscale outbreak in a small farming village. The king was informed, and royal guards were posted to keep anyone from trying to flee.
Jon replied in a somber tone. Another deeper gulp, and the Lord Commander went into further detail.
The soldiers were also getting infected. An outbreak was feared. The king asked me to an overwatch on Rhaegal. On the third or fourth day, a few farmers attempted an escape, and I pursued them. Rhaegal burned them, without instruction. He sensed my disapproval, my angst, and my disappointment. He turned and started burning the entire village. I pleaded with him to stop, but the beast was determined to defy me.
Sir Jon went blank-faced as he recalled these events.
Once we returned to the wall, an inquiry was held, and I was cleared of any wrongdoing. A dragon is not a slave, and is free to make decisions on its own. It was determined.
Sir Jon finished with watery eyes.
I still hear the screams. It torments me at night. I was never able to communicate with Rhaegal again. I broke our bond. As far as I know, it's never been done before, and I think Rhaegal took offense.
Jon finished as the entire galley went quiet. Just then the double doors of the galley broke open as a trail-weary rider scanned the occupants of the hall. Finally, his eyes rested on Sir Jon, and he hurried over to the table.
Lord Commander Stark.
The rider asked while slightly out of breath.
I bring word from Winterfell, from Maester Ashmore. Apologies for my lateness. Riding around the Tarly army on the King's Road was difficult, sir.
The rider explained. The nameless rider then thrust the letter into Sir John's hand. He sat across from his son as his eyes silently scanned the dark words from his childhood castle. Sir John crumpled the parchment in his fist as food fell from Lord Eddard's mouth when he witnessed his father's reaction.
It appears Winterfell has been infiltrated. Captain Glover killed, and your Uncle Bran has been taken.
John's words fell to the floor to Eddard's horror. Lord Eddard then sprang to his feet in anger.
Why are we just hearing of this now? Why weren't ravens sent?
Lord Eddard demanded, and the rider responded quickly.
The ravens were the only other casualty, my lord, other than Sir Galbert.
The messenger explained. Lord Eddard looked to his father, waiting for him to order a legion of men to Winterfell. Sir John could feel his son's eyes upon him.
Take Little John and ride for Winterfell.
Sir John said in a somber tone.
Just us.
Lord Eddard responded in shock.
He's your brother.
Young Eddard demanded of his lord father.
I have nearly 20,000 brothers, Ned, and one marching north possibly to his death. My place must be here, son.
John paused, considering the weight of the next words that must be spoken.
You are now the Lord of the North, and there must always be a Stark in Winterfell.
King Gendry sat opposite of the Hand of the King in the small council chamber. Arguments had been compelling regarding the harvest in the Reach, as well as the rationing of stores being sent to the Night's Watch. Gendry did his best to pay attention, but his mind drifted. He waited for the final reports regarding the common folk uprising just 2 nights prior.
There has been more than enough talk. Put the motion up for a vote already.
Lady Yara Greyjoy exclaimed with a stench of impatience.
If the lady from the Iron Islands were to refresh herself on the King's law, she would know that a 3/4 majority would be necessary to avoid the royal veto. Does the lady believe she has the votes?
The Master of Laws reminded Lady Greyjoy.
We are exercising the law Lady Sansa wrote herself.
Lord Robin felt the need to add.
And the King himself then ratified.
Lady Sansa was quick to point out.
My lords and ladies, debate is the cornerstone of any adequate representation. This is the King's vision for the future of the realm.
Lord Tyrion piped as 3 lords then spoke at once. King Gendry thought this to be torture and agony of the highest order. The door of the small council chamber then opened. Sir Jericho promptly marched to Lord Tyrion's side of the table, and the council then fell quiet.
Apologies for the interruption. His Grace ordered the final casualty counts to be reported once they had been tabulated.
Please continue, Sir Jericho. I assume you have the figures.
King Gendry asked as he straightened himself in his chair.
121 common folk casualties, some by trampling, most by blade. 16 city watchmen of various injuries, a few sporadic assaults on lords and ladies of the court. Luckily, most were apt at defending themselves. Numerous fires were set throughout the keep, but damage was minimal and shall be repaired within the fortnight.
What of the masses? To what degree of resentment do you hear of or see?
By day, most are being civil. Lack of drink and darkness deters the boldness of the common man.
Sir Jericho admitted to the scoffing of the cross-armed Lord Robin.
We should find out more once the sunset curfew is lifted, of which I would recommend.
Sir Davos added to minimal support.
The majority of commerce takes place after dark.
As well as the majority of the treachery.
Lord Robin added. King Gendry's eyes shifted over to Lord Robin for just the slightest moment. Lady Mira Reed opened her mouth to retort, but then thought better of it.
The curfew will be lifted soon, but not tonight. Allow the taverns to open for daytime hours.
King Gendry ordered to a bowing Sir Jericho. The knight sensed his dismissal as he made for the door. King Gendry then made a subtle gesture to warrant his attention.
Lady Arya,
the king whispered.
Your Grace, she received a letter from Castle Black. She left the royal apartments, rather distraught, I dare say.
Anger or tears?
King Gendry whispered as chatter then returned to the council chamber.
Seem to be equal parts both, Your Grace.
Lead me to her, Lord Commander.
King Gendry ordered as the High Council rose to their feet when the king exited the small council chamber.
Any ideas as to the content of the letter?
King Gendry inquired with a concerned voice.
The contents, no, but it was addressed first to Lady Arya, then to Lady Sansa.
Stark issues then. Odd the letter wasn't received from Winterfell.
King Gendry said aloud, but to himself. They came to a halt at the foot of a staircase that led to the northern ramparts of the Red Keep.
At the top of the stairs, Your Grace. When you hear the lute and the singer, you'll know you are close.
Sir Jericho advised as Gendry understood he meant to offer them privacy. Gendry climbed the stairs, straining his ears to hear which direction to head next. The lute strings' harmonies could be heard faintly as he reached the top of the stairs. Lady Arya would often request harpists and singers privately. Little did she desire for anyone to know of her appreciation for a harpist's strings. It was far too ladylike for Arya's supposed taste. She found it calming when she happened to be feeling anxious. Raising a strong-willed daughter does much to cause these feelings of anxiety, Gendry thought to himself. As the king quietly turned the corner, the bright southern sun shined on the shoulders of the lute player and Lady Arya.
Now there once was a time when the Northerners sang of a king they had crowned, more a boy than a man, more a pup than a wolf, with the cold of the realm in his eyes.
Very much to his surprise, the voice was not of a man. It belonged to the mother of his child. Her head hung as she sang.
He'd broken a vow to the lords of the twins, what a stranger, a beauty, but a promise there'd been. So the Lord Frey demanded a bridegroom as compromise. And the timbers groaned, river wind softly moaned. Though the king in the north doesn't know how a red wedding goes.
King Gendry was stricken. He had never heard Arya sing before. He found himself captivated, but knew the subject of the song was reflective of her mood.
Well, the feasting was plenty, and the singing in tune, and the stark wolves they howled neath their northern moon, so loud were their cries that the closing of doors was drowned out. Lady Catelyn alone had the river's sharp ear, her dancing reels turned to the rains of Castamere. In her skin and bones growled a creature of doubt, and the timbers groaned, river wind softly moaned. Oh, the king in the north soon will know how a red wedding goes.
Arya finally was made aware of Gendry's presence. Still, she continued to sing, her eyes closed reverently as a single tear fell from her nose.
There were arrows and daggers, and the touch of them burned. From players to slayers, in an instant were turned, and the foreigner queen was the first to fall under the knife. With 2 arrows in him, the king crawled to her side, while his mother she pleaded for the Lord to subside. But he'd taken their word, and to break it meant no right to life. And the timbers groaned, river wind softly moaned. For the king in the north, now he knows how a red wedding goes.
King Gendry sat behind her and wrapped his arms around her shoulders as she continued. She returned his embrace as he could feel her slight shaking.
Lord Bolton approached with a thrust to Rob's heart. He gave him the Lannister lion's regards. The king's mother wept, for his last word had called her to him. There was nothing she felt cutting Lady Frey's throat, and she felt nothing more when they slashed her own. The North will remember, she thought, and they'll have all your skins. And the timbers grow the king in the north, if he'd known how a red wedding goes. And the timber's grown, but the north awaits, they know that one day the blood they are owed will run neath their souls, run neath their souls.
For a few moments they sat in silence. Gendry knew Arya would confide in him once she felt comfortable enough. The lute player had made his exit stealthily enough that Gendry failed to even notice.
I love you, you know. I always have.
I've never doubted it.
Gendry replied as softly as she had.
Despite my stubbornness, despite my isolation, you always stood by me, always defended the indefensible.
Arya paused and looked over his shoulder to take in his face.
You doubted my perceptiveness.
King Gendry replied with a slight smile.
What troubles you, milady?
Gendry asked while trying to mask his concern.
Troubles that have plagued my family ever since my father's execution, my grandfather's execution, and my brother's.
Arya claimed with a blank face.
Bran has been taken. We don't know by whom, or for what reason. But one thing is certain. A Stark is needed in Winterfell, and I need to sail.
Arya claimed it as a statement, but her eyes begged for Gendry's agreement.
The full weight of the crown is behind you, whatever is needed.
Gendry claimed with a slight squeeze of her shoulders.
In the morning, then.
Arya claimed as her face broke into a wide smile.
On a single condition.
Arya's face finally showed a sign of doubt.
I wish to love my daughter's mother tonight, not one of her girl's forms.
King Gendry asked to Arya's approval. She grasped the back of his head and brought her scarred face to his. When she withdrew herself from him, she spoke softly and decisively.
I want to marry, upon my return, if my king would still have me.
Lady Arya asked carefully. Gendry spoke no words and merely kissed her again in agreement. It was all he ever wanted. Even 7 kingdoms hadn't satisfied the man who just wanted a wolf to himself. Perhaps he was more like his father than he originally thought. Lady Joanna paced around the Iron Throne, taking in its presence. The throne room was empty as she admired its aura. It was where her mother had once sat, however brief. It was where her father slayed the Mad King, setting up the events that would eventually lead to her own existence. Joanna heard a slight clearing of a throat that attracted her attention. Lord Brynden Tully then crudely attempted an introduction. Lady Joanna allowed him to present himself, against her better judgment.
The throne attracts you, does it not, milady?
Lord Brynden inquired. Lady Joanna had to admit the new Lord of the Riverlands was at least perceptive.
No more than the average lady of the court.
Lady Joanna replied, though she had no interest in sparring with the new Lord of the Riverlands.
Though you are no average lady, you are the daughter of a queen of the 7 kingdoms.
Lord Brynden claimed as her chest was swelled high with pride.
A bastard daughter of a queen.
Lady Joanna replied under her breath. It had become a custom of hers not to accept the criticism of those incapable of flattery or objectivity. A lesson learned from her uncle and adoptive father, Lord Tyrion.
All lords and ladies of the court assume their titles under a visitation from the stranger.
Lady Joanna replied honestly and directly.
Such as your own appointment, under questionable circumstances.
Joanna admitted as Lord Brynden decided to take offence at her accusation, just as she had intended.
Your meaning, milady?
Asked Lord Brynden defensively.
Your father's interesting passing, just hours after he dined with you. His body was sent down the Red Fork, without a maester's autopsy. Was he not?
Lady Joanna asked intently. She was not familiar with the specifics, but she had learned the questions on the mind of the court members, particularly her adoptive mother, Lady Sansa. She was probing Lord Brynden, but he had proved a worthy adversary as he spoke of his father. Lady Joanna attempted to appear objective, but she was collecting information she knew Lady Sansa would find curious.
My father fell from his horse.
Lord Brynden replied defiantly, as if he was being accused of something sinister.
And I'm sure a proper investigation would be warranted into his death, perhaps headed by my own mother, the Master of Laws.
Lady Joanna threatened. She never wasted an opportunity to mention her adoptive parents' position.
Lady Joanna's uncle was guilty of murdering his own father.
Princess Brianna Baratheon interrupted, as both previous members of the conversation snapped their heads towards her.
Lord Tyrion was pardoned by the king himself. Do you believe you have the same sway with my father, the king, as his own hand?
Lady Brianna asked with a measured amount of bravado. Lord Brynden, the newly christened Lord of the Riverlands, had no retort.
Your presence is no longer required, Lord Brynden. I'll assume your dismissal will be to mourn the untimely death of your Lord Father.
Lady Brianna replied to Lord Brynden's dismay. Without a word, Brynden stomped out of the throne room, clearly frustrated at the contradiction of the official story.
He fancies you,
Brianna accused, and Joanna scoffed at the presumption.
You think so? He has an odd way of showing it.
Joanna replied with the presumption of doubt in her voice.
He's either trying to court you or kill you.
Brianna replied while attempting to not sound too serious, but still wanting to make her point.
You're always so definitive.
Joanna replied with a certain assurance to her own accusations. The pair of ladies slowly walked down the corridor away from the Iron Throne.
Is it true? Rumor has it your mother is resigning her appointment.
Princess Brianna asked Lady Joanna.
It is true. I will be bringing young Tyler to Casterly Rock, of which he is the heir after Lord Tyrion, of course.
Lady Joanna responded as Brianna grasped Joanna by her arm to try and warrant her attention.
I don't think you are aware of the danger we are all in. The Red Keep was under siege, just last week. It is rumoured Lord Brynden murdered his own father, and now your parents are sending you to Casterly Rock, under the umbrella of Lord Tyreek.
Princess Brianna impressed upon Lady Joanna.
Lord Tyler is the heir to Casterly Rock, and I will be his regent until Lady Sansa arrives in the Western Lands.
Lady Joanna replied, and Brianna answered as if she had expected this response.
Do you not hear what I am describing? Lord Brynden murdered his own father. And you think the blood of Tyler Lannister is capable of protecting you both?
Brianna replied as Joanna ripped her arm from the princess's grasp.
We are being sent with a legion of Lannister troops, as well as a sworn sword from a neutral house.
Lady Joanna replied with an air of confidence. The two ladies spilled out into the king's courtyard as their conversation continued, now in a more hushed tone. She was met by First Mate Osman as he joined the ladies' party.
Milady, the stables have prepared your host, aye.
Osman responded with a neutral voice.
I appreciate your volunteering for this caravan, my lord. I assure you my protection will be well rewarded.
Lady Joanna advised to the Ironborn as they proceeded down the Red Keep staircases to the stables located below.
Yeah, nah, Lord Tyrion made me an offer that could not be ignored. I reckon he is doubting the loyalty of some of his own guard.
Osman replied, and then had learned to regret his own words.
Forgive me, milady. Lord Tyrion instructed me not to put you on edge. Your journey will likely be uneventful, as will your exchanges with Lord Tyreek, eh?
Osman responded carefully as not to worry the regent and her heir to the Lannister family fortune. The stables had come into view, as well as 24 Lannister soldiers. Lord Tyrion and Lord Varys were present to see Lady Joanna off to her courtship. Joanna then bent over to kiss her adoptive father's cheek.
All arrangements have been made. Lord Osman will be in charge of the procession.
Lord Tyrion informed his daughter as a means to ease her mind.
Sansa will be 2 weeks behind you. Once she advises her replacement as Master of Laws, she will immediately depart for the Rock.
Lord Tyrion concluded to his daughter, and she kissed his cheek, apparently in reverence of his effort to make her feel secure.
Mother couldn't see me off,
asked Lady Joanna as she searched the courtyard for any sign of Lady Sansa.
Perhaps she couldn't bear the thought of you growing up.
Lord Tyrion responded in defense of his wife. Lady Joanna smiled widely at her adoptive father as she continued.
Is Lord Brynden under investigation?
Asked Joanna to her father that made him slow his progress to the caravan.
As you are quite aware, I am forbidden from commenting on an ongoing investigation.
Lord Tyrion responded to his beaming daughter. Joanna smiled widely at her father's confirmation by omission. The courtyard doors were opened as Lady Sansa then handed little Tyler Lannister off to his father before facing Joanna.
Guard him with your life, and he will likely be ready to do the same in due time.
Lady Sansa instructed. Joanna accepted the responsibility and stood straight-backed in the presence of her adoptive mother.
I assume you will be decisive in your courtship decision?
Lady Sansa asked with a longing curiosity.
I am fully aware of why we are being sent west. Please join us, as soon as you are capable, Mother.
Lady Joanna responded plainly. The only unaddressed matter of business was why to travel on the Western Road, vice sailing. Lady Joanna assumed it was due to the recent battle being fought in the Stepstones. Joanna could tell Sansa was holding something back. She held eye contact, trying to encourage her to continue. Lady Sansa obliged her while trying to mask her emotion.
I just want you to recognize the probability that your mother would have murdered me if it had ever become convenient for her, and how difficult it would be to trust my son to her.
Lady Sansa replied carefully, seemingly unsure if she should have mentioned it. Joanna knew she could have easily taken insult to being compared to Cersei, but she applied her father's intellect to the situation before she replied.
I have no naivety when it comes to what my mother was, and I recognize the strife her family has caused yours. I am now your family, and perhaps looking after Tyler as we venture west would be a way of settling Cersei's debt. We Lannisters are rather fond of settling debts, are we not?
Lady Joanna replied, now matching Lady Sansa's level of emotion.
You so remind me of Sir Jaime sometimes.
Lady Sansa laughed through her tears. Joanna stared at her shoes to conceal her own watery eyes.
Being the daughter of the Night Kingslayer has always brought me a bit of pride.
Lady Joanna revealed as Lord Tyrion quickly replied,
As you should.
He claimed as he approached the carriage.
The caravan is ready. Please deliver my regards to Lord Tyreek.
Lord Tyrion asked as Joanna dried her eyes.
Lord Tyreek will see more Cersei out of me than Sir Jaime.
Lady Joanna revealed as she took custody of young Tyler from Lord Tyrion.
Do be careful, daughter. You and young Tyler are the only evidence I've ever done something good with my life.
Tyrion laughed at his own presumption. Joanna bounced Tyler on her hip and bent over to kiss her uncle on his forehead.
We both know that is simultaneously true, and a complete lie.
Joanna complimented, then climbed the steps to the carriage. Osman of the Iron Islands secured the door and took command of the Lannister soldiers. Lady Joanna knew she would at least have one sword not easily influenced by Lord Tyreek, once they arrived at Casterly Rock.
Yeah, now let's get these mingers moving, eh?
Osman bellowed from outside the carriage. Joanna felt it jolt as they commenced their journey. She had meant what she had said. Her duty was to find a proper engagement, one meant to strengthen the Lannister hold on the Western lands. Tyler was still years off from taking power at Casterly Rock. This was pressure not many young ladies would ever encounter, except perhaps her adoptive mother, Lady Sansa. Lady Joanna would be counting the days until Sansa arrived in the West. Never before had Joanna craved her guidance so much. The best she could hope for was to ensure that young Tyler would safely arrive at the Rock, a task she believed she was more than capable of. Ned Stark stood atop a mount. He had no idea how he got there. All he knew was that something called him there. He was supposed to be here, though he was not sure why. A distant screech was heard from behind him as he spun atop the summit. Snow continuously fell all around him. Ned wasn't even sure if he was in the north anymore. He saw Rhaegal dip in and out of the clouds during this twilight hour. Eddard stared longingly at his father's dragon, knowing full well of the fury he unleashed on the Reach, assuming, of course, his father was being honest, to which Eddard did believe. Rhaegal's roar turned into a screech as another set of wings flapped down upon him, Eddard spun again as the two dragons were set upon a collision course. He longed to warn Rhaegal, to order him to flee. He leaned forward out of instinct and lost his footing as he slid down his backside and grasped at the loose snow to break his fall. Despite his effort, he fell over the cliff and felt his stomach rise into his throat. Eddard woke as he felt hot breath on his sweaty face. A pair of vivid yellow eyes were trained onto his, likely drawn to his mumblings in his sleep.
Where the bloody hell is Tarly?
Eddard thought to himself as a dark-haired wolf stared at him mere inches from his face. Eddard knew there was little game in this area of the gift. The Watch had hunted these lands well. The mammoth wolf appeared to be hungry as it licked its own lips in between slight growls. Ned finally heard a sword being unsheathed that attracted the wolf's attention as Jon Tarly stood tall and approached them slowly. Ned turned his head. No. He mouthed to Little Jon. This slight communication aggravated the wolf into aggression. It pressed its nose to Eddard's face as a low rumble emitted from between its exposed teeth. Before Eddard could draw his next breath, the wolf bolted over the campfire and into the tree line. Ned and Jon exhaled together as Ned then righted himself.
The bloody hell was that?
Jon exhaled as he broke his stare into the tree line.
It was a warning.
Eddard exclaimed as he reached his feet.
From what?
Jon asked as he sheathed his steel.
The hell if I know. The damned wolf didn't speak the bloody common tongue.
Eddard exclaimed as he warmed his hands in the campfire.
What were you going to do?
Lord Eddard asked as he raised his head.
Besides save your life, I'd prefer to save his. That was the stranger. Lord Bran told me of the wolf while I was his ward.
Jon admitted as he took a seat on the opposite side of the fire. For a few uncomfortable moments, neither spoke until Ned broke the silence.
Thanks.
Eddard said with a head nod and a small crack of a smile. Little Jon returned the head nod with the typical sour look upon his face.
I'm sorry about your brother. I can't criticize Lord Samwell for blaming my father. I just hope you don't as well.
Lord Eddard exclaimed with sincerity.
I don't. Sir Jon is a good man, from a good family. I don't judge him for the dragon massacre of the Reach. It doesn't seem to be in his nature as a Stark. The Starks treated me well for nearly all of my life. I can't imagine a scenario where Sir Jon made an irresponsible decision regarding my brother's ranging.
Jon concluded as he added another log onto the hissing, popping fire. Their conversation continued when neither returned to sleep as the sun rose over the horizon. The campfire was reduced to a smoulder as the two young men saddled their horses for the day's ride. Their horses trotted along the King's Road as the sun rose high in the overcast sky. Neither young men spoke much on their casual three-day ride down from Castle Black. Jon suddenly charged ahead of Ned and unsheathed his sword in response to something. Ned craned his neck and brought his horse to a halt, wondering what had alarmed Little Jon. Ned heard a faint whistle from the woods. He recognized it immediately and set his horse into a gallop.
Jon! Jon, lower your sword!
He screamed over the loud thuds of his horse's hooves. Jon Tarly just glanced over his shoulder at Ned as an arrow whistled past his ear and struck a nearby tree. Jon heard Eddard's warnings, but a lowered weapon would likely make his death. Little Jon searched the tree line for the assailant just as Eddard placed himself between Jon and the invisible threat. Jon Tarly refused to lower his steel as Eddard returned a whistle to the wind. After a few tense seconds, Lord Eddard's blood riders emerged from the brush.
Your people, Stark?
Jon Tarly asked with his sword still raised.
Indeed they are.
Lord Eddard responded with a slight smile.
You may want to work on their bloody introductions.
Little Jon warned with a grunt and a sheathed sword.
The horses reached Castle Black without incident.
Mara reported as she emerged from the tree line atop her mare. Lord Eddard returned a look to Little Jon. He finally relaxed his shoulders, assuming the Dothraki to not be a threat.
Kisha reach Winterfell she front ki dusoku.
Argo commented and Jaco agreed.
Anhazinaruk, Anhaki raised Sheedis Reishi, Koi Annikoi.
Ned responded curtly. The five riders trotted their horses and the conversation was light. Ned was hoping to avoid the topic of the Tarly army. He thought better of using Jon's last name in the introductions. More conversation about Little Sam's passing would likely set Jon even more on edge, Ned thought to himself. The sun ducked below the cloud cover just above the horizon as Winterstown came into view. Ned refused a garrison, as a typical lord's arrival would warrant such an honor. He sent word ahead to the Maester, but refused the arrival honors. His uncle Bran was the Lord of Winterfell, regardless of what his father might say. There Bran should stay until his death was confirmed. The pack howled, announcing Ned's arrival as they approached the north gate. The sentry recognized Eddard and granted passage. As they trotted their horses to a halt in the courtyard, Ned took in the sight. Maester Ashmore quickly reached the stables to welcome Eddard, was his assumption. The Maester could always quickly access the grounds. Given his study was moved to a ground floor upon Bran's ascension as the Lord of Winterfell. The wolves continued to howl as the sun dipped below the horizon. Eddard dismounted as he was greeted by the Maester.
My lord.
The Maester greeted Lord Stark with a slight bow.
My Lord Tarly, your return is welcomed.
As his eyes trained over to the foreigners still atop their steeds.
They will be welcomed as well. They consist of my personal guard.
Lord Eddard explained as the Maester hastily agreed.
What news is there?
Lord Eddard asked as he pulled his gloves from his hands.
Lady Arya will be sailing for White Harbour. She has insisted that the Lord's chamber remain undisturbed until she arrives.
The Maester again drew a deep breath and continued.
It has remained so, my lord, but the final decision rests with you.
That will be fine.
Lord Eddard replied as the courtyard catwalks filled with the inhabitants of the castle, eager to get a look at their new lord.
What of Sir Glover?
Jon asked as his boots hit the ground. The Maester turned his attention to Winterfell's former ward.
His body was returned to Deepwood Motte. His brothers mourn his death.
I'd like to be shown his quarters.
Jon Tarly asked as the Maester's eyes shifted quickly to Eddard for confirmation. Lord Eddard gave a slight nod, and the Maester commandeered a guardsman to escort the former ward.
There is no need. I know the way.
Little Jon claimed as he lumbered past Lord Eddard. Ned grasped him by the arm and tilted his head back to reach Jon's ear.
Bring what you find directly to me. Meet me in the hall for dinner. I'll need to formalize your position.
Ned finished and Jon agreed. The Dothraki still had not dismounted and waited his orders. Ned offered his blood riders in the Dothraki tongue, an offer he had hoped they would take. To his surprise, they agreed but demanded to question the guards on duty the night of the incident, again speaking their native Eastern tongue. The three galloped out of the courtyard and the Maester gestured that Ned accompany him. It was a short walk to the Maester's study. A few ravens had left droppings on the entry table. A fire roared in the hearth despite the warm northern weather on this summer night. Maester Ashmore shuffled around his desk and sat with a grunt.
Here are the current appointments, my lord. Although many of them are untested, Lord Brandon was decisive and left little to chance, mostly due to his gifts.
The old man revealed as Ned could hear the slight clang of the Maester's chain.
Are there any that need to be replaced?
Lord Eddard asked simply, and the old man then responded.
The captain of the guard.
Maester Ashmore replied simply to Eddard's slight frustration.
You misunderstand, dear Maester. Is there anyone who failed my uncle, or even worse, likely to have betrayed him?
Lord Eddard asked, or more so demanded.
Even if there were, Lord Bran would have known. It is very probable no one in the castle had any knowledge of his apprehension.
The Maester then coughed at the end of his statement.
Jon Tarly will serve as my captain of the guard, and my blood riders will be given a lord's honor.
Lord Eddard demanded, and the old man again grunted in a disapproving tone.
They are my guests, and will be treated as such.
He reminded him again, and the Maester then nodded.
It is not my intention to change the operations of the castle in any significant way. I am the Lord of Winterfell, temporarily, until my dear Uncle Bran returns.
Eddard informed the old man and saw his chest deflate in relief. Lord Eddard responded confidently.
Let's hope he does, my lord.
Master Ashmore exclaimed in agreement.
Starks tend not to do well. When outside the sight of the old gods,
Master Ashmore finished in a somber tone.
Speaking of which, did my Lord Uncle ever walk into the Dark Wolf, the stranger?
Lord Eddard asked as Ashmore lifted his tired eyes off of his desktop and upon the young Lord of Winterfell.
Why do you ask, my lord? Did you cross the stranger's path?
He asked slowly, almost regretting having to ask the question.
I did. He woke and stared at me, uncomfortably long. I thought it might have been Uncle Bran.
Lord Eddard revealed, just now realizing how preposterous he sounded.
Interesting.
The old man replied as his quill started scratching across parchment.
That's very interesting.
Maester Ashmore repeated as Lord Eddard continued to remain patient, having never received an answer to his inquiry.